Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues episode 65. Phil Scott rejects the GOP healthcare overhaul. On the one hand, I'm critical of Phil Scott. I won't be voting for him again. In all likelihood, I'll probably vote for myself. Or that, what is he, like 12, 13 years old? He's running, I'll vote for him if he's still in the running. He seems more sane than Phil Scott. So I've got a lot of criticism to offer him. Dragging his heels on marijuana legalization, this sort of thing, saying, oh, Trump is being bigoted, because he wants to enforce immigration policy. But on the other hand, I can kind of understand where he's coming from here, just, at least just a little bit. I know he's sort of a rhino. He's sort of a Vermont-style Republican, which is to say on social issues he's not really a Republican, which isn't always a bad thing, by the way. Except on pot, he does a total 180. Goes far right, oh, I'm not sure we can legalize this. Little kids might smoke pot. Like, they're not already doing that. But the GOP has attempted to overhaul the health care law several times. We had Ryan Care. We had McConnell Care. We even got Rand Paul, who's the sane man in the room, involved, and it still couldn't pass. What hope remains in the minds of many Republicans, or indeed many Americans at large, that the GOP is equal to the task of actually improving the ACA? I would say the best thing to do is just to repeal it, go back to the way things were before, offer a direct subsidy for some people who are, disadvantaged, and then try to tackle the ever-rising cost of healthcare. So hopefully in the future, insurance costs less, and therefore whole classes of people that right now would still need a subsidy, people in the marginal middle class still struggle to pay for, the Obamacare plan. All of a sudden they won't have a problem with that anymore. They won't have a problem because it'll cost a fraction of what it costs now. Our problem with healthcare isn't, oh, there aren't enough doctors, there aren't enough hospitals, there aren't enough nurses, we don't have enough medical devices, we don't have enough organs, or any shortage or anything like that. It's all well taken care of. We have a pharma monopoly that doesn't experience proper competition. We have Obamacare that actually prevents interstate competition, federalizing everything and driving the cost up further. It doesn't help that Jonathan Gruber was involved both here in Vermont, trying to defraud the state, which he had to settle out and I think pay $400 grand or something. And the state of Vermont sued him and was going to win. They let him off the hook and said, okay, well, you just settle up the amount that you basically defrauded us on and all's even. This is the same person that multiple times you had leaked footage of him saying, oh yeah, well, we had to lie to people to get them to accept Obamacare because, yeah, it's a tax. And of course, the Supreme Court said, yeah, it's a tax. In order to subsidize. Basically what it is it's an extremely opaque pro-pharma way of establishing what could have been done very simply by doing nothing more than saying, having a joint bill saying, number one, we're extending coverage to people under their parents' plans for a few extra years. Which, by the way, everybody supported. Yeah, makes the system cost a little bit more. I think the benefit on that token outweighs any problems that are involved. Number two, pre-existing conditions, which is, it's either or. I tend to be supportive of it, but there are some quirks with it. Could have been a little bit more targeted, perhaps. And number three, that we're going to levy a small tax on the American public, on people that are from the, the upper middle class, in order to pay for people who are in the lower and working classes to have plans that are a little bit cheaper. Okay, that's fine. You could have accomplished that without thousands of pages of legalese. But can the GOP do better? That remains to be seen. They've tried 3 times. They failed 3 times. Now you have several competing ideas within the GOP. I think at some point people are a little bit on the demoralized side that anything could actually get accomplished. This is way, way worse than, like, the immigration issue is easy. Trump can dangle DACA over the Democrats' heads, get wall funding or sanctuary city crackdown. He can use executive orders. I spoke with Molyneux and said that would be the wrong way to go. Yes, short-term gain, long-term great deal of pain. GOP looks weak. GOP looks abusive, potentially, to some centrists in the country. Despite the fact that they generally oppose illegal immigration, want to stop it, there are different methods you can do that, and of course it wouldn't be long-lasting. It's just an executive order. We saw how Obama's DACA, which was an executive order, fell by the wayside in minutes as Trump signs a piece of paper. Not the right way to go. My worry on the ACA is that it will now essentially be around forever, continuing to incline costs and be abusive, and the only good thing about Trump getting involved will be, well, there's no more mandate, so there's no more actual tax. This actually screws the program up faster. Like, it would have fallen anyway. A bunch of exchanges have collapsed. A bunch of companies have pulled out of various states and stopped doing business in this manner because it's so expensive. And these aren't the entities that wrote the law that are doing this. The big pharma and some of the insurance monopolies within states, they're the ones that wrote this law. Obama didn't sit down and write 2,000 pages of fucking legalese. He didn't do that. That never happened. He was simply charismatic enough to market it to people as though, oh, well, this is merciful and kind and millions of new people have insurance. Yes, they do. The problem is a lot of people who had insurance that was perfectly fine now have to pay more for the same coverage, or they pay less but they're getting shit coverage compared to what they're used to, that they used to be able to get, or, now it's, their junk plans. Somebody who only needed a small amount of coverage can no longer attain it. That was within their budget. Now they have to get some Obamacare plan that's subsidized, that doesn't cover anything more, honestly, anyway, and makes them pay more. And it's screwing people in the middle class who are still marked for having to pay that penalty in many cases because there are no affordable plans for them to actually attain. That's the problem with Obamacare. It's a dumb idea. It was never about, oh, well, we want to be merciful and kind. Anytime the government tells you, hey, we want to be merciful, kind, moral, and ethical to people, so we want to supply something for them, be assured that that's just a marketing strategy. It's no different. I'll even extend it further. Trump makes cryptic statements about going after extremist content on the internet. What do you fucking think he means by that? Do you think that he means, oh, we're actually going to crack down on literal extremists, or do you think it has something to do with political discourse, shielding the legacy media, perhaps? Yeah, I think it probably has to do with the latter, and I oppose it. Until I see the meat and bones, the actual substance of such a proposal, debated properly, until I see it vetted properly, until the public has a chance to weigh in on it, until tech firms and developers have a chance to weigh in on it, I could never support such a thing. That would be, by the way, another, at this point, minor strike against Trump. Minor because it hasn't actually taken form yet, and of course, with Congress strangulated as it is, will it pass? Yeah, even odds says it doesn't, so I'm not horrifically worried at this time. But Phil Scott's rejecting the GOP healthcare overhaul, so I can't really blame him, but at the same time, we need to do something. It'd be better just to get rid of the ACA, repeal it without replacing it, encourage more competition, then write a simple bill for pre-existing conditions and extended coverage. That requires a couple pieces of paper. It doesn't require 2,000 pages. Just repeal Obamacare, simplify it drastically, and offer that direct subsidy. Why don't you axe some random federal agency and take that money and use it to subsidize people who are not well off? By the way, by axing that agency, maybe at the same time drop taxes a little bit on some small class of people, entrepreneurs or small businesses or whatever. That's the way to get the economy moving. If the economy's moving and there's upward mobility, fewer people will actually need the subsidy. That's the whole point. Making it really, really complicated and monopolistic in form helps to strangulate that entire industry that otherwise would be a cash cow. The U.S. Pharma companies are a cash cow, but they're not being tapped properly because those pharma companies don't have to pay the sky-high business tax rate. It's just like any other multinational firm. And they have no loyalty to the United States. They don't care if our healthcare system collapses. They can make money selling drugs from other countries, importing doctors and nurses from other countries. That's the problem with multinational firms. A multinational firm does not care if your economy goes south so long as you're still capable of buying some cheap foreign product. They've been doing this with China for decades now. They're doing it now with India. India, of course, being more of an actual ally on the world stage instead of just a fair-weathered friend that diplomatically quarrels with us on a constant basis. A little bit of economic nationalism would work in this situation. I'm not talking about protectionism. I'm talking about free things up here, reduce the bureaucracy, the regulations, and the tax rate on these businesses so smaller and regional businesses can grow. Then we probably don't have a healthcare problem. Because startups will begin producing, and reforming patent and copyright law too. Startups will just replace any dead weight that the pharma companies have left behind by going overseas or downsizing or something like that. That's the way the free market operates. There's a lag involved. Takes time. It's still way, way more efficient. And I'll be speaking on the topic of free markets later because I've noticed a disturbing and funny trend among proponents of socialism and government intervention that I think needs to be spoken of as well. That's about all. Peace out.